Southeast Iowa Today with John Bain is brought to you by these great sponsors. Car Doctor of Washington, Iowa. No matter who Frankensteined it, they can fix and clean and customize it. Griner Auto Body of Washington, Iowa, using state-of-the-art techniques and decades of experience to get your car back on the road after an accident. Wayland State Bank, over 90 years of being community-minded, just like you, located in Wayland, Winfield, and Mount Pleasant. McDonald Boneyard of Keota, Iowa, for all of your auto and farm machinery recycling needs. Hinshaw Trailer Sales of Richland, Iowa. They've got a trailer for you. Just call them or go by and see them. And they fix what they sell and don't in their full-time repair shop. Girling Repair of Winfield, Iowa. If your mower is dead, call Fred, your Husqvarna and Aaron's dealer. B&B Propane and the family of jet stops located in Burlington, Salem Stub, New London, West Point, Denmark, Houghton, Bonaparte, Milton, Fairfield, and Birmingham present Southeast Iowa Today. I'm John Bain, author of Christie's Journey, The Beat Goes On, and your host. On today's episode, I am on the road over in Galesburg, Illinois. My buddy Bob DeWitt told me about the Stearman Fly In, and the Stearman is a type of airplane. So I'm taking you to the Galesburg Municipal Airport. Wait till you see what we found there. Ty, thanks for taking some time to be on Southeast Iowa Today with me here in Galesburg, Illinois at the Galesburg Municipal Airport. And we are at the Stearman National Fly In. And you, I understand, are president of the Stearman National Fly In.
That's correct, yep.
And can you tell me and our audience lots more about it?
Sure. The National Stearman Fly In has been here at Galesburg now. This is the 52nd annual. It started in 1972. One of the local guys, Jim Leahy, is a Stearman pilot, Stearman owner, and an aerobatic pilot, and he wanted to get together as many Stearmans as he possibly could. And then he found that was quite a big task. There were several thousand on the register at the time. And Tom Lowe from Crystal Lake, Illinois, jumped in as a co-chairman to help him organize that. And that first year they had 17 Stearmans show up. And our 50th, which was a couple of years ago, we had 153 Stearmans here, which is an all-time high for us.
And how many do you have here in 2023?
This year right now we have 45 registered.
45 registered.
Which is still a very good turnout for this early in the week. But it's a little bit low, probably because of Reno. This is the last year of the air race at Reno, and a lot of the fellas like to go to Reno.
And is that Reno, Nevada?
Reno, Nevada, the air race is there.
Oh, wow.
Yep, so that's a little competition for us around this time of year.
Okay. Now, give us a little history of the Stearman plane. How does it get its name? And tell us some things about the plane itself.
Sure. The Stearman was designed, or was born from some back of the napkin drawings that Lloyd Stearman made back in the Stearman Aircraft Corporation. Boeing bought the Stearman Aircraft Company, and then a couple years later they needed to create a new design for the competition to create a trainer for the military. And the Model 75 was born from that competition. And so it's been commonly called a Stearman ever since the base design came from Lloyd Stearman.
Okay.
It won the competition amongst the various manufacturers to become the primary trainer. And there are several variations of the Stearman. You have the blue fuselage, yellow wing, which was the Army version, and then the all yellow one was what the Navy wanted. There are some slight equipment differences between them, but essentially they're the same aircraft structurally. Some things equipment-wise might be the engine or the compass and things like that were different between them, but pretty much the same airplane. And they made, numbers vary depending on the account you talk, but they made close to 10,000 of these, including some spare parts for World War II.
Wow. And
after the war, they were used for crop dusters. You could buy a Stearman, I've seen prices in the official records anywhere from $500 on up to $1,200 or $1,300 for a Stearman bought after the war. And some of the fellas bought 15 or 20 of them or more to start crop dusting businesses.
Yeah.
And they threw us crop dusters, I think, up into the 80s even. in a few places, but
Okay.
they were largely replaced by the turboprop aircraft that could carry more fuel for that operation. And being used like that kept spare parts available and support was available for a long time. And the enthusiasts started getting a hold of them as they were being retired from crop dusters. And you had to, some would restore them back to their original military configuration, Army or Navy, and some would create what we call custom, which would be more a colorful paint job with stars or stripes and a cowling and maybe wheel pants, things that weren't on the military version.
So just like guys hop up their cars, they hop
Exactly.
up the planes.
Yep, they do it, make it look the way they want to.
That is cool.
So there's a lot of them around. Then of course, as crop dusters too, they put bigger engines on them. The airplane normally came with a 220 or a 225 horse radial engine on them.
Okay.
And the crop dusters wanted to carry more product, more chemicals or dust.
Gotcha.
So they'd put on a Pratt & Whitney 985, which is a 450 horse engine, so almost double the horsepower. And then there was
Double the fun too.
Yeah, it burns more gas.
Yeah.
Well, and pretty much all your aerobatic Stearmans, for the most part, ran the higher horsepower engine, the 985, because it turns it into a hot rod.
Yeah.
But something that fans could look for too would be look up John Mohr, M-O-H-R, on YouTube. He flies a stock Army Stearman, and what he does with that airplane, if you know how a Stearman flies, is nothing short of fantastic. It's just awesome what he can do with that airplane. It's incredible. But back to the horsepower, they've also, the crop dusters put Pratt & Whitney R1340s on them, which was a 600 horse engine.
Wow.
So they wanted more power to carry more weight so they could be out in the field longer spraying. So there was a lot of spare parts. The Continental engine, the 220 horse engine on the airplane, was also used in a certain model of Stuart tank and also in Navy landing craft. So the same basic engine, there are some common parts that you could use on the aircraft engine. And they built tens of thousands of these engines and accompanying a number of spare parts. So there's still new spare parts available today for them.
So, but there are no Stearmans being manufactured today?
No, the last one, I'm not 100% sure what the date was, but somewhere around 1944, maybe 1945 was the last one was built. And the last, I think, the last Stearman that actually left military service, because the Air Force kept a couple around here and there for training, and I'm sure the base commanders had fun with them.
Sure.
And I think the last one left somewhere around 1947. They retired it from actual military service.
Well, you're too young to have been involved in all that.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with Stearman flying?
I have a Cessna 140 in 1948, and I moved from one airport in Wisconsin to Kenosha. And one of the guys there, Pete Spear, was a Stearman pilot, and he was actually here at the first fly-in.
Oh, wow.
I think he's missed one. And we fly up to Washington Island to camp out up there at a fish boil, and he took me around the patch a few times in the Stearman up there, and I got hooked. And then, I don't know, maybe a year or so later, I found one in Madison, Wisconsin, nearby, and I bought that and have been having fun ever since. So
wow.
It's a lot of fun. It's a very rugged airplane, and probably the closest thing that maybe more people could relate to is it's kind of like a motorcycle or a Harley. You know, it has a radial engine sound to it. You've got the open cockpit, so the air and all that, and it's just a lot of fun to fly.
And probably in your mind, in your experience, there's probably nothing better to fly.
Right. It's just so much fun, and it was a trainer too. It's a primary trainer. So, and it has, in some circles, a reputation as being, difficult to handle on the ground, which is, in a tailwheel airplane, you have to be on your toes with all of them, but some are more docile than others. And the Stearman is not a hard plane to fly, but you have to be on your toes with it all the time, because it was designed to train pilots.
So no texting while you're doing that.
No texting. And when you're in the air, you can, but on the ground, you best have 110% of your attention
Gotcha.
on what's going on.
So where's your home base today?
Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Kenosha.
Yep.
So what do you think of Galesburg, Illinois?
I like it. I'm really fortunate that we're only about 175 miles away, so I can fly down here in a couple hours.
Okay.
And we have some folks that, if they come from the East Coast or West Coast, rather, that's I've heard can take 20 hours worth of flying.
Wow.
Just to get here.
Wow.
And we do have a few that come from that far away. We have the aircraft from Canada here today. They got in yesterday.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, when you fly from Kenosha to here, do you use the highways as a guide, or how do you get here?
Basically, we know the compass course is about 220.
Okay.
So 220 degrees, and we just set that and go. And of course, I do modern days. I got a portable GPS that I can look at if I'm wondering where I'm at. And then, of course, just like the old days, we'll look at the water towers as they go by to see what town's name is on there, and then look on the chart to see if we're in the right place or not.
So if you can read water tower names, you're pretty low.
Well, yeah. I mean,
how high do you fly usually?
Our usual cruising altitude going places is maybe 2,000 feet, 2,500.
Okay.
So if there's a really favorable tailwind, a little higher, we'll go higher.
Okay.
But usually we're pretty low.
All right. You ever run into any geese or duck up there flying by?
I've seen them go by, but I have never run into one.
Okay.
Usually when that happens, it's on the ground.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're landing and there's a goose taking off or flying by.
Gotcha. Well, I've asked you a lot of questions, but those are questions of things that just to get a feel so I can learn things. What's a question I should have asked you that I didn't, that our audience would benefit hearing about?
I'd have to think about that for a minute.
Okay.
There are a lot of Stearman aircraft around. There's a few on the market, so if you're interested in them, they're out there. If you want to learn how to fly, even we've had a couple of people in recent times do their basic training in a Stearman. And
really?
Start out flying them, yeah.
Is it expensive to learn to fly?
Like a lot of things nowadays, it's gone up. Gas costs more, is a big expense. Parts costs a lot more. Labor, mechanics, and flight instructors, everything's up some.
Sure.
So it's a little bit relative. Like a lot of sports, for me to fly, I became an aircraft mechanic too, so I can do my own work.
Oh, that helps.
That helps me control my expenses there.
There you go.
But yeah, it's not cheap. But if you have the passion for it, it's one of those things that you'll do. You could equate it to owning a modern sports car, not a Lamborghini or something like that, but a Corvette or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Ty, I really appreciate your time today and all the information you provided. We'll wrap up this segment, and maybe you can show us a couple planes.
Sure, we'll walk around and look at some of the different examples.
Ty, tell us what we're looking at here.
All right, we're looking at a N2S3 Steerman with a Continental W670 engine on it, 670 cubic inches, 220 horsepower. It's a 7-cylinder radial engine. This particular example has an unshielded ignition. You can see the spark plugs look kind of like the car spark plug. And the owner of this, there's no radio in it because with the unshielded ignition, all you'd hear would be the buzzing of the ignition.
Gotcha.
So you'd need a shielded ignition to have an effective radio. There's 2 spark plugs per cylinder, one in the front, one on the back side. And this propeller is a steel Macaulay propeller. It's probably the best propeller, most efficient for the aircraft. The blades are solid forged steel, very aerodynamically efficient, and the hub is steel as well.
Now, my friend Bob DeWitt asked about wooden propellers. Some of them have them and some of them don't?
Some had, and when they actually started early, really very early in the war, maybe pre-war, they had wood props on a lot of them. And the wood props just aren't as efficient. They have to be a little thicker, and they just don't provide as much thrust as a Macaulay prop, or one of the other examples we'll see is a Hamilton Standard that has aluminum blades. And a wood prop soaks up vibrations a lot better due to the nature of wood. So
okay.
the engine runs smoother. The steel Macaulay is not going to be as smooth, but it provides a considerably amount more efficient lift and thrust than the wood prop. So
I see.
They went to these quite exclusively almost during the war.
Now, the wings on this, those are, did you say aluminum, or did you say?
The wings, the leading edge of the wings, if we look here, the leading edge, probably this section of it here is aluminum sheet metal, about 16 to 20 thousandths thick normally. The rest of the wing is wood. You have two wood spars, spruce, Sitka spruce or Douglas fir, and then the ribs are wood made up of spruce with little mahogany plywood gussets on it, and it's a very strong airplane. They haven't had one come apart in the air like you might see or have heard about some airplanes being overstressed and a wing coming off or something like that. That hasn't happened with the Stearman. Okay. They're stressed to very high G load.
Now I got a question.
Being rugged.
Now for this right here, that's not just for someone to come out and do acrobatic stunts, is it?
No, that's basically helps keep the wires in place and vibration free and just keep things organized. They call that a javelin.
Javelin, okay.
Yeah.
All right. What else should we know about this plane?
The wires on it help form a truss to give it everything strength.
Okay.
And hold the wings in position. So those, you have lift wires and landing wires. So the landing wires kind of hold the structure up when you're on the ground, and when you're flying, the load pulls up on these flying wires.
Very cool. And you said this was actually a U.S. Navy plane at one time?
Yep.
Okay. Wow. It's incredible. The ingenuity and everything that went into designing this craft is just amazing.
Yeah.
And the engineering.
It stood the test of time. They were, heavily modified for the crop dusters. They'd take out the front seat and cut some tubes out and put a tank or a bin in there for the liquid or the powder that they would crop dust with. And they even built some different wings for them, higher lift wings, so they could carry more load.
Wow.
That's what it was all about back then for crop dusting. And the fuselage on this, while it looks kind of round and all that, that's what we call the bird cage. There's aluminum stringers in there that give it a more round shape. And the inside of it is a steel tube structure that's more square that actually provides the structure, the strength of the fuselage.
Wow.
And then the fuselage is fabric covered back in the day, and the wings as well are fabric covered. Back in the day it would have been grade A cotton.
Really?
Today we have modern Dacron fabrics that you shrink with an iron. So that's one of the times where you'll find a pilot or mechanic actually doing some ironing. It's shrinking the fabric on the airplane.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then you have a variety of paints. You can use the old-fashioned, what we call dope, or they have modern urethane paints that you can paint it with to give it that really shiny, wet look.
And I was saying that most of the planes have that.
It's probably more popular nowadays. That everybody likes that look. But back in the day, they were dope, and they were sort of, satin or almost flat looking was the way the dope would look, and that's more realistic.
More to the era.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the cowling around the front part here, this was aluminum sheet metal to give it all that structure.
Wow. Well, I've got one word for it that best describes it for me, and that's cool.
It is cool. And for me, when I think about a biplane or you have the mental picture of a biplane, this is the shape that comes to mind.
Right.
It's just very elegant, and it's an awesome airplane. It's just so much fun to fly.
Oh, I bet so. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up this segment now. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Ty, you're going to show the audience a special airplane here.
Yes, this is a special one. Some of the older audience might know the Red Baron Pizza biplanes. They had an air show team that would go around doing aerobatics in Stearmans, and they were all modified to have the Pratt & Whitney R985 450 horse engine with a nice cowling on it, and they had Cleveland wheels and brakes on them, so they had good disc brakes. And we were fortunate enough to have a couple of folks at the Stearman Fly In who are members. And this one here, this example is November 802 Red Baron.
How cool is that?
These are, they were extremely well maintained, and they are, you know, all very well good flying airplanes. Of course, they did 4-ship aerobatics with them. They had 4 that could fly formation and do all the aerobatics, loops and rolls and all that stuff. And aside from the engine modification on this, they also had 4 ailerons, which was unusual. Stearman normally had 2, 1 on each lower wing. This one has 1 on each lower wing plus 1 on the upper wing.
Okay.
So it gives it a better roll rate and a little faster control.
Wow. And I wonder, did they ever think about delivering pizzas that way?
They probably did back in the day.
I bet so.
We were all disappointed when Red Baron, when they disbanded the team.
Oh, I bet.
And a couple, I think 1 or 2 of the planes ended up in museums, and then a couple of the others ended up in private hands. And this is one of those.
Wow. So if people come out here to Galesburg, they'll have a chance to see this thing in the air.
Yep.
That is awesome. So Ty, tell us about this plane.
This PT-17 here was recently restored. It has a nice, really good looking urethane paint job.
Yeah, it does.
This one has the Lycoming 225 horse engine on it. And Quentin Marty is the owner of this one. It's a very, very nice looking airplane.
Would he mind if I just stuck the camera up and looked in the cockpit?
Oh, no, go right ahead.
Okay, we'll kind of walk over here. This is one of the advantages of, besides changing light bulbs, I can reach in and
Yep.
and there's the what do you call that stick? Joystick, or what do you call
the control stick?
Control stick. Okay.
Yeah, he's got his little portable GPS in there to make sure he doesn't get lost.
Wow. That is cool. Now, when he flies, does he fly from the back seat or the front?
It depends on how the weight and balance works on an airplane. It could be flown from either seat, but typically the pilot flies from the rear seat.
Okay. That is awesome. Southeast Iowa Today watchers and listeners, you're getting all access today, and this is quite a privilege. See, the wind kind of makes that flap there. And you said it was 200 some horse, this one?
Yeah, this is the Lycoming R680. It's a 225 horse engine. The most obvious thing about it that's different from the Continental is this has a front mounted exhaust.
Yes.
See this front mounted exhaust. This one has the Hamilton Standard propeller in it, which is aluminum blades and a steel hub.
Now with that exhaust like that, do you get a lot more heat towards the cockpit? I can see that it comes out this way, but it's going to be blowing back.
It blows back, but you don't notice it while you're flying in the airplane. You don't feel it or see it or anything.
Okay.
Like that. And the exhaust on the Continental comes out the right side as well.
Okay. Wow.
And it's warm, so he must have come back recently.
Okay.
And this one has this is an example of a shielded ignition. So everything is shielded to prevent the high frequency noise from disturbing radio.
Gotcha. I really appreciate the access, Ty. This is wonderful today.
Oh, you're welcome. We're always happy to talk about the Stearman to anybody that'll listen.
Well, I know we got a pretty good listening and viewing audience. I'm sure they're paying attention right now.
And everybody's welcome to come out. We have tram rides. You can get a tram ticket for $1 and ride around, and it's narrated, and they give some history of the airplanes. And we have some food vendors on site all week. And,
all right, well, we'll definitely take a ride on that for sure. this plane is getting ready to take off, and we're going to watch him a little bit. See this Stearman in action. Wild blue yonder's a little gray today, but I still bet it's neat up there. Pete and Marie, welcome to Southeast Iowa today.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. I am just having a great time here in Galesburg, Illinois, and going around. Ty's shown me a lot of neat planes and told me a lot of information. And I said, "Do you know any pilots other pilots that I could also talk to?" And he brought me right over to you. And this is cool. We got a plane flying right in here, coming in for a landing. Tell me where you folks are from and how you got into flying Stearman airplanes.
Well, I'm originally from Illinois. Grew up in Skokie, Illinois,
Okay.
and learned how to fly at DuPage or Milwaukee Airport, and then over to DuPage County Airport, where I checked out the Stearmans.
Nice.
And I've been flying for a little over 50 years, and I've owned that airplane right there for 49 years.
39? 49. Oh, wow. So you started in 50 years, and a year later you had a plane. You were hooked.
I was hooked.
Yeah. And Marie, how about you?
I'm originally from Southwest Illinois as well, but we live in Salem.
Okay.
We fly out of Kenosha. I never thought I'd be a pilot, but our first date was in his Stearman. So I learned to fly not long after that. We flew together. He checked me out and taught me to fly his Stearman here during the flying years ago. And then we had the opportunity to acquire the second Stearman, which belonged to friends of ours through the years. So we acquired the second one. So we have the Navy one he's owned for so long, and then we've had this one since 2014.
So when you left from Kenosha to come to Galesburg, how soon up in the air did one of you pass the other one?
I passed them both up. His tie flew up with us as well.
Okay.
So, yep.
You passed both of them.
I did. Only because if I don't, they would just leave me behind anyway.
Oh,
so
okay.
They're usually in the air slightly faster than I am. So I took a little advantage of what I could find and got ahead of them.
Well, I just know I was at harness racing last weekend in Watchir, Iowa.
Okay.
And it's like we were talking about, the rivalries or the competition. And it's like as soon as the second horse trotted along, that was the first horse race. As soon as the second car was built, that's when they had the first car race. And I'm sure the same kind of things happen with airplanes.
We usually don't have any kind of competition in the air,
Uh-huh.
but over long distances we put ourselves where we're comfortable. Around home we'll fly a 3-ship formation a lot of times when we're going places like to breakfast or whatever, but on the way here we just got comfortable with our speed and just went on our way.
Describe the feeling that you get when you're a couple thousand feet in the air and all these other people and the problems of the day and everything is down here on the ground.
I own a piece of history. And I think about it a lot. Think about the pilots that trained in these airplanes during the war and how difficult they are to fly for the way they teach today and everything else like that. And to learn in one of these after you become a private pilot is a real challenge. And once you master it, you can understand where it's all coming from.
Wow. And Marie?
Once we leave the ground, it's a feeling that's completely undescribable, and we've always had this agreement over the years that once we leave the ground with the airplane, we leave our problems on the ground. We don't fly sad, we don't fly angry, we fly and it's a sense of freedom. And like I said, you get up there, you're amongst the clouds, you're with people. You know, I love looking over and seeing him fly over there next to me, and there's a sort of peace to it. There is a challenge on, you know, days when it's windy and stuff like that, but you need that, and you appreciate it sometimes because it makes you a better pilot. But there's really, you know, it's really hard to describe the feeling that you get in an open cockpit. If he had more hair, you know, he'd feel the wind in his hair, but some of us have more than others.
Well, I'll tell you, just in the perspective that you folks get, I mean, us land dwellers, we're seeing everything from the ground eye view. You're seeing it from bird's eye view and ground eye view. Does that make you look at the world in a different way?
You don't see any borders. When we cross from Wisconsin and come to Illinois, there's no line that says we just crossed.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I have no navigation in my airplane. I fly with a chart, and been everywhere like that. And you could still get paper charts, but you can't get road maps anymore.
Good point. Wow.
Go ahead.
No, but that's that challenge too. Because imagine, you know, at that era, I like thinking back and everything else like that. If they did it then, I could do it now.
I say, you two are smarter than most people.
I don't know about that. But
I've been, you know, we get weather challenged sometimes over the years. 49 years flying that airplane. Actually, I could say it 40, because it was down for 3 years when I completely restored it. It was restored in 70, and then I re-restored it in 88, 89, and 90. So it was down for 3 years.
Wow. I really appreciate the visiting with me today. This is wonderful. It made me just feel good hearing how you both describe it, and the relationship you have with each other, and that you can share this hobby is just incredible. Anytime you can share a hobby with a loved one, it's the best, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was, like I said, it was one thing to fly with him for years in the airplane, but then it's significantly, and we do have fun. We do fly together in his airplane pretty often, but there's really nothing like flying along, and then either he'll pull up next to me or I'll pull up next to him, and I can just look over, and this was his passion first, so I got the passion from him. So, you know, I can look over, I was like, yeah, that's kind of where it starts, and like you said, this is what we share, and it makes it so meaningful.
In our history with this airplane, it belonged to two previous friends. One had it, and he got sick.
Okay.
He sold it to another, and that person became a good friend of ours also.
So there's definitely a personal connection.
So,
And they're both gone now.
Oh.
So when I fly this, I not only fly it for us, you know, for the two of us, but I fly it for them.
You probably got a couple passengers with you.
Absolutely.
And
They're there all the time.
And they were both participants here.
Yeah,
Really?
They were.
Ray, the one that owned it before, he was long-term.
Well, I'm sure they're flying higher now, and they look down at you while you're flying, and I bet they're smiling.
Absolutely they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much for being on Southeast Iowa today.
Thank you.
Let us get into position. This side will be the best because you get the exhaust.
Okay. Marie's getting ready to start this.
Yeah, so this Stearman's equipped with an electric inertia starter. So the original ones were hand crank to crank up a little flywheel, and then you would engage the starter. The ground crew would actually do it from outside the airplane.
Okay.
Marie's airplane, she has an electric inertia starter, which has an electric motor that spins up the flywheel, and then she'll pull a handle to engage it, and it'll spin the engine over and start.
Okay.
So she's already primed the engine, which is done outside up front on the little control panel on the engine. She's getting buckled in and getting everything ready to go, and then we'll hear the starter motor engage and spin up the flywheel.
Okay. And it's a little breezy here, so my audience, if you're hearing wind, I'm doing the best that I can.
And this is one of the really cool sounds of the airplanes that have these type of systems. They don't always start on the first try.
Right.
So Pete's going to give it a couple more shots of primer.
Okay.
The Continental likes to have a lot of gas to start.
Okay.
Are you aware of the hole in the center of the taxiway down there? Okay. You said that to report them. There's a. I mean, it's behind the.
Pete's
Stearman 678.
helping Marie get this thing ready to
Stearman over,
start.
and it's right in the center of the taxiway. I mean, it goes down about that deep. Okay.
By 678. I'll go look at that.
No, not 678. The one this side of it. Go out to the tails between the nose and the other, and that plain yellow.
That's pretty cool. Yes. In this situation, they're waiting. Is the white plane coming this way, or?
Yeah, white plane's coming this way. I don't know if they have a plan of formation flight with these two guys or what.
folks here at the airport even have a little tram driven by Big Bad John. It says so on the back of his hat. But this gives us a chance to see the planes in a rolling fashion as they sit still and wait their turns to fly. This is what we try to do on Southeast Iowa today, folks. Give you all access. Hopefully inspire you to come out, check things out for yourself. How cool is that? Bumpy on this wagon, but hopefully you won't get motion sickness. Want to thank my friend Bob DeWitt from Galesburg, Illinois for telling me about this awesome event. You see cars going by in the background, so really, if you count this little ride as a train, we've got planes, trains, and automobiles all here in Galesburg, Illinois. And here's a plane with a wooden propeller. As is the case with this one too. Really have amazing examples of Stearman planes right here in Galesburg, Illinois. That was a great time in Galesburg. It's always fun to get on the road. And once again, thanks to my friend Bob DeWitt for telling me about the Stearman Fly In there in Galesburg. This episode of Southeast Iowa Today is brought to you by Car Doctor, Griner Auto Body, Wayland State Bank, McDonald Boneyard, Hinshaw Trailer Sales, Girling Repair, and B&B Propane and the family of Jet Stops. I'm your host, John Bain. Stay friendly, Southeast Iowa.